Hello there guys, welcome to one of my live videos, and just to confirm that both David De Gea and Paul Pogba have missed training ahead of our game against Partizan Belgrade tomorrow evening. So that does mean in that aspect, David De Gea and Paul Pogba, will not be involved. I think also Luke Shaw as well has missed training. Obviously, like I mentioned on my previous videos, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to make alterations in the squad anywhere. I think he's going to play a lot of the youth tomorrow evening, and obviously he's going to rest key players because we've got Norwich City coming up on the horizon. I think Norwich is on Sunday. Obviously the game against Partizan Belgrade is our third game in the Europa League in Group L. Obviously, it is going to be a tough encounter, like I mentioned, because Partizan Belgrade's home form is very, very good this season. They are unbeaten in 11 home games in the European competition, and I think they're sitting fifth in the Serbian Super League at this present time. And obviously at the moment, Man United and Partizan Belgrade are level on points in the current table. But yeah, it is going to be a tough encounter, and obviously it's a game Manchester United do need to win, because I did say one of the things that do need to improve at Manchester United is our away form, because I think it's now 11 away games that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has had now without a win at Manchester United. And we've got games coming up thick and fast. I think our next 4 games are all away from home in all competitions. Like I mentioned, the last time Manchester United played Partizan Belgrade was obviously back in 1966, or was it 65? So that's around 50 odd years ago now. It was in the European Cup semi-final, like I mentioned, but I think Manchester United did actually lose that. And take into account Partizan Belgrade are the second most successful team in Serbia. So Man United, we will have to be on our game. But regarding De Gea, he surprisingly played against Liverpool at the weekend. I was very, very surprised about that, because obviously there was a lot of reports saying prior to the Liverpool game that David De Gea could it was looking very, very probable that he was going to be missing the game against Liverpool, because David De Gea, don't forget, had to withdraw from international duty last week, due to the leg injury he had sustained. And David De Gea had to come off in the second half. He had to come off in the second half, and obviously the first the extent of the injury was unknown. But then obviously Solskjaer did confirm that his injury was not as severe as we first feared. But even if David De Gea had made the travel anyway, I still believe Sergio Romero for this particular game would have been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's preference, because obviously Sergio Romero mainly plays in the Europa League games and the Cup games, and he is our second choice goalkeeper. But like I mentioned, David De Gea is very, very imperative. Like I mentioned, he's been at Manchester United now around 8 years. He's now into his 9th season at Manchester United, so he has been a long servant at the club. He has been here since the Alex Ferguson era. Don't forget, David De Gea is the highest paid goalkeeper in the world, because he's on around 375 grand a week. But yeah, like I mentioned, he's been a long servant here. I think he hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected within the last 10 months or so. I think he's been below par, but I think prior to that he's mainly done well. So you can analyse it and say De Gea's had 7.5 good years out of the 8 years he has been at Manchester United. But I would say overall he is the best goalkeeper in the world. Like I mentioned regarding Paul Pogba, he's not going to be involved in this game. Like I mentioned, Paul Pogba he's obviously been ongoing a foot injury that's been surrounding the player, like I mentioned, for a matter of weeks. And, Paul Pogba, I think, has missed 6 of the last 8 games for Man United in all competitions, due to this foot injury. And we do know how much of a big miss he's been, Paul Pogba, because we do know he does make a difference in that midfield. You can tell the difference when Paul Pogba's in that midfield and when you take Paul Pogba out of the equation. And like I mentioned, I do know that he's mainly enjoyed difficult time with Manchester United, in comparison to his time with Juventus and that. Paul Pogba now is into his 4th season as a Manchester United player, and that, we paid obviously £89 million for him. Obviously, for the entirety of the summer, Paul Pogba was subjected to intense speculation, because he was relentlessly linked with a move to Real Madrid during the summer. And I still believe Paul Pogba's got the same perception I still believe, he's planning to make a move to Real Madrid either in January or next summer. But despite the fact, of Paul Pogba staying or going, I still believe anyway, where we need a midfielder, because we are missing creative impetus in that midfield, and that's one of the priority areas, where Manchester United do need to strengthen up. But hopefully the likes of Pogba, De Gea, and maybe Luke Shaw, and that can be back for the Norwich game on Sunday. Like I mentioned regarding Luke Shaw, he hasn't played since the 2-1 home defeat to Crystal Palace. Now I said, Luke Shaw's a very, very imperative player for Manchester United. Obviously now he's our first choice left back, and he's been here more or less the same amount of time as Anthony Martial. A lot of people talk about Luke Shaw being injury prone, and I will agree on that aspect, but he's nowhere near to the extent of Eric Bailly, because Eric Bailly is obviously quite a lot more injury prone than Luke Shaw. But like I mentioned, prior to Luke Shaw's injuries and prior to his bad spell under Mourinho, I think he's had a good career with Manchester United, and taking into account Luke Shaw won the double player of the season last season. Good news is Jesse Lingard is back in training, so I think he could be playing in this game against Partizan Belgrade. I think he's missed the last 2 league games with a hamstring injury, and like I mentioned, I think Jesse Lingard is one of the players that really does need to step up to the plate, because he's been very, very poor as Jesse Lingard, and I said, like I mentioned, reflecting on his status at the football club, he should be putting much more better performances out. But so he could be playing in this game. Obviously, Martial, as you all know now, is back from injury, which is very, very good news, because he came on in the 1-1 draw with Liverpool. Like I mentioned, that's a big, massive boost for Manchester United, because we have been missing Anthony Martial. Obviously, we are aware, the difference he does make in that attacking line, because he adds inspiration in that attacking line, and I think a lot of things have improved about his game. I saw improvements of what I saw of him early in the season. I think he's got that finishing asset. He seems to get more of them runs in behind now. But I thought he enjoyed a great start to the season, Anthony Martial, before he sustained this thigh injury. But it's good now he has recovered from this injury. And, Martial is into his 5th season now as a Manchester United player. He's produced 50 goals for the football club since his arrival from Monaco back in 2015, because he has been here since Louis van Gaal Moreira, and obviously it got confirmed at the start of the season that Anthony Martial has been given that number 9 shirt, because he does seem to be more effective in that central position, even though he does play out wide on the left. But yeah, it's good to see him back in action anywhere. Got some news regarding, Alex Tuanzebe and Diego Dalot. Obviously, they've recently, suffered injuries. Obviously, as you all know, Alex Tuanzebe was named in the squad, the starting 11 to play against Liverpool. But obviously, due to the hip injury he had sustained before kick-off, obviously, Marcus Rojo had taken his place. Now, Tuanzebe is a doubt for the game tomorrow evening. Like I did say, I think the games that Tuanzebe has played in this season, he's actually done really, really well. With Diego Dalot, like I mentioned, he sustained quite a few injuries this season as Diego Dalot. I think he's played around 2 or 3 games this season. I think he's out with a leg injury at the moment. I think Dalot had a groin problem earlier on in his season, but he is one of our backup options at that full-back position. So for them two are definitely major doubts for the game. And Nemanja Matic, I think he could play in this game. Matic has been out with a knock injury, I think. Like I mentioned, anyways, initially lost his place in the team because he's no longer a first choice. But I think in the Europa League games and that, he will get given more opportunities. But so he actually could be available to play. So like I said, regarding the injuries, we've got anywhere. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will make alterations in the squad. But yeah, like I mentioned, I was happy, with the result against Liverpool at the weekend. Getting a 1-1 draw against them. I was happy. I wasn't satisfied. That we didn't hang on to our lead. It was a shame, that we didn't get all 3 points. But take into account, Liverpool are regarded as the best team in Europe because obviously they won the Champions League last season. Also, we all expected to go into that game losing. We all expected to lose, and we actually are the first team this season, to take a point off Liverpool, and we stopped Liverpool from winning 18 on the bounce in the Premier League, which was very, very good. And the performance, the performance was also better. Like I mentioned, I thought there was some good individual performances, and like I mentioned, I credited Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in that game because I thought he tactically, got it spot on. So we did show some tactical flexibility, which was very, very good. Solskjaer, went with 3 at the back. But will he keep doing this now? Will he keep going with 3 at the back and that? But yeah, and a lot of United fans this season, like I mentioned, including me, have been actually criticising Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics because, he has been getting a lot of his tactics wrong for the majority of this season. And I do admit, Man United for the majority of this season have been tactically inept. I think recently Gary Neville came out and criticised Solskjaer, for his lack of substitutions, but I don't think he did much wrong in the game against Liverpool. But yeah, hopefully now that result against Liverpool, can give us more momentum and can put obviously confidence into the team, and hopefully now we can start putting good performances out. We can start getting positive results. We can start scoring more goals, because also that's been a problem for Manchester United, this season, that we haven't been scoring enough goals, and we still seem to be conceding goals, even though we did address our defensive deficiencies with the signing of Harry Maguire. But so far this season, we've only managed 10 goals in 9 Premier League games. So in the games we have actually scored in this season, we've only managed to score 1 goal, except from the game against Chelsea, because we did beat Chelsea 4-0 on the opening day of the Premier League season. So for me, we've just got to be more ruthless enough in front of goal. Like I mentioned, this season's actually replicating last season. This season's obviously worse than last season because, like I mentioned anywhere, we're enduring our worst start to a Premier League season for 3 decades. But, last season, we wasn't scoring enough goals, and we didn't seem to have that clinical element. And in certain games this season, we have actually, created a lot of chances, but, we just haven't been ruthless enough in front of goal, and that's a problem, Manchester United do need to justify. I think also the home form needs to improve, definitely, because that's also been very, very poor. I think also, a lot of players do need to step up to the plate. But like I mentioned, due to our inconsistency, I think, everyone needs to take the blame, but I think the vast majority of the blame does stem from the board, because like I mentioned, the board have been a liability for several years, obviously reflected on their poor recruitment, poor selection of managers, and that. And there's still some Manchester United fans demanding for our current board to leave, and obviously they want to recommend a new board in and still stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And for me, the board do need to assure structural changes at the football club, and whether they can assure these structural changes or not, I do not know. Obviously, I think some of the blame does stem from Ed Woodward, because he's also been a liability for a lot of years. There's obviously a lot of Man United fans demanding him out. Obviously, some of the blame does stem from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So basically, in my opinion, everyone is to blame. And you can quite frankly say at the moment, we are facing a relegation battle, because we are sitting 13th and we are just 2 points above relegation. Like I mentioned, I don't think Manchester United will get relegated, because I think there's too much money into the club and the clubs are too big. We haven't been relegated since 1974, which is obviously over 40 odd years ago now. But, I have got element of concerns about Solskjaer. There's some aspects of me that also, do credit him. And, my element of concerns I've got about him, I just don't think he's, got a good enough stature, to get Manchester United in that commanding position where they want to be. Like I mentioned on my previous video, Solskjaer hasn't got any intuition on how to manage a big football club like Manchester United. Solskjaer and obviously Ed Woodward regarding the situation have got the same perception, Ed Woodward insists 100% that he's still backing Solskjaer. Solskjaer, still feels as though he's the right man for Manchester United, and he's never felt the job is too big for him. But Solskjaer just hasn't really got that managerial experience, because, like I mentioned before, he came to Man United. He was at Mould. Obviously, he only won a couple of Norwegian titles with Mould. Obviously, before he was at Mould, he was at Cardiff. And obviously now he only had a really, really short tenure with Cardiff. He only lasted around 30 games for Cardiff. He actually ended up getting Cardiff relegated, and this is the main factor reason why he did get the sack. And certain Man United fans fear, that he could replicate at Man United, what he did do with Cardiff. But we just basically selected Solskjaer, after the sacking of Jose Mourinho, because obviously Solskjaer knows the traditions of the football club and that, and obviously he was a great long-serving player for Man United for 11 years, and he has got that proven pedigree as a player, because he was a fantastic player. He was a match winner, but he just can't succeed as a manager. Don't get me wrong, we are still early on in the season, and there's still plenty of time to turn things around and that. Not all managers do settle in. Prime example, look what happened with Jurgen Klopp. Obviously now he's doing really, really well with Liverpool, but when Jurgen Klopp first got recommended into Liverpool, he was really, really poor. And I think it did say, his record after 28, 29 games were as bad or worse than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So maybe some people believe if we keep Solskjaer for maybe a year or two, he may emulate into like Jurgen Klopp. But Solskjaer hasn't really been at Manchester United that long, so you can also take that into account. Obviously, Solskjaer's obviously been at the football club now for around 10 months overall. So he has been at the football club just under a year. He's been at the football club 10 months. He's been permanent manager, for around 7.5 months. And you can say that Solskjaer has enjoyed difficult 7.5 months with Manchester United, because obviously, since he got the job permanently, everything has just seemed to have all gone wrong. Like I mentioned, it did say that, we've only managed 5 wins out of our last 24 games in all competitions since you got the job permanently. It did say that we had the 4th worst record in the Premier League. It says it's only Brighton, Southampton and Watford that have got a worse records than us. But reflecting back when Solskjaer was the interim manager, he did really, really well. He got the best out of these group of players. The results were good, the performances were good, and he did exceed expectations. And my perception then were different on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I thought in that 3-month period, he was the right man to elevate Manchester United forward. But obviously, I've had a different overarching view since he got the job permanently. Yeah, and I think, Man United, have made mistakes in the last, 6 or 7 years, we have made mistakes. I think the recent mistake we made was obviously, giving Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the job. And in a way, I do feel sorry for him, because I think Manchester United have actually, put him in a very, very difficult position. And, Solskjaer, he's got a lot of honesty about him, and that's one of the things I do credit him for. Obviously, he's aware of what's going on, and obviously, he wants to succeed as a manager at Manchester United, because he obviously, he loves the club. But, he's aware of the expectations as well, he does have to exceed at Manchester United. And I said, at the start of this season, that our expectations this season will be to finish in that top 4. So in that aspect, we can't get back into the Champions League. Because obviously, failed to qualify for the Champions League last season. And I did say, that was maybe one of the main factor reasons, that went against us during the course of the summer, because obviously if you're not in Champions League football, then it's going to be hard to attract players to the elite level. And I did say a lot of players during the summer had element of concerns about coming to Manchester United. And, so we need to try and get into that top 4. I've already disregarded the top 4, even though it is only early on in the season. I think we could maybe finish 8th or 9th this season, but I don't think, we will get in that top 4. But yeah, and we have got big ambitions for the future, and obviously those ambitions are to get back to winning silverware, and obviously get back to being a competitive elite level football club. Because like I mentioned, we have been a toxic football club for the last 6 or 7 years. But we are all aware anywhere that, a massive rebuild is needed at Manchester United. A massive rebuild is needed at the football club. There's still deficiencies in the squad that I do need to be addressed. Like I mentioned, we addressed some of the problematic areas during the course of the summer. We got that experienced centre half in. We also got that right back in. And, Solskjaer, I'll credit him, he did recommend 3 good players to the squad during the summer. We spent nearly £150 million. And Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire have settled in really, really well. And they've all enjoyed fantastic starts to their Manchester United careers. But the good thing is, it's good that Solskjaer is making plans for January. Obviously, he's looking to sign. Well, he's just recently admitted he's looking to sign 2 forwards in January. But I think, we'll do the vast majority of our transfer business next summer. So, like I mentioned, in the next 3 to 4 windows, we have got to do really, really good recruitment. Like I mentioned, that's actually, very, very imperative indeed. I do believe in the next couple of transfer windows that more players do need to leave Manchester United as well. Despite the fact that we did get rid of a lot of the deadwood, during the course of the summer. So, like I said, these 2 players now at Man United that are not good enough, to represent the football club. But you can still, quite frankly, say anywhere, Solskjaer is still in the process of rebuilding this Man United team, because, like I do keep saying, analysing the majority of this Man United team, it isn't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's. Take that into account. The majority of this team is Jose Mourinho's, because don't forget, Jose Mourinho did recommend 11 players in there to the football club. Obviously, the majority of this, and Solskjaer now obviously is inheriting the vast majority of them players that Jose Mourinho did recommend in. But I think Solskjaer anywhere has been assured that he will be given money to spend in January. Like I mentioned. But yeah, I think we need at least 5 to 6 more signings if we are to be back, to being a competitive elite level football club. I think, we are expected to sign Mario Mandzukic in January, according to a lot of reports. I think he's actually our top priority for January. Reportedly, Mario Mandzukic has actually had his wages slashed from £300,000 a week, I think, to around half. So I think Man United, if he comes, will pay him around £150,000 a week. There was a lot of reports the other week talking about, Mario Mandzukic, and did say Man United have reached a verbal agreement with Juventus to sign Mario Mandzukic. And I think, we definitely need a striker. We do need at least one striker. We need someone to come in that can assure us goals, someone that can be more effective in the box and that, and someone that can lead the lines. And probably Mario Mandzukic would be the right calibre player. He has got a lot of goals under his belt. The only element of concern I've got about him is that he is 33 years of age, so he's actually only got a couple of years left in his footballing career. I think it said Man United are willing to offer him an 18-month contract worth around £85,000 a week, which does equate to around 4.4 million a year. So Solskjaer's obviously keen on recommending him in, and he's keen on bringing another forward in with Mario Mandzukic. So if we get Mario Mandzukic, obviously Solskjaer is, obviously preparing to break his current transfer policy, because obviously he's been saying a lot that he wants to stick to the policy of recruiting young British players, like he did do early on in the summer. But Mario Mandzukic is highly experienced, like I mentioned, he's been at Juventus a number of years. I think he's scored around 44 goals in 162 appearances for Juventus. Since Maurizio Sarri got recommended in the summer, he hasn't played a minute of football as Mario Mandzukic. So in that aspect, anyway, he is his 2 requirements. I still think he's under contract with Juventus until 2021. So he's one of the players looking to sign in January. And he's actually a cheap alternative. We'll only have to pay around 9 or 10 million pounds for him. So I think he's going to be coming. If we can obviously get him in, he will be our 4th signing under the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer era. But there's quite a lot of players on our agenda in that. There's been quite a lot of midfielders on our agenda. You know, there's still talks about Moussa Dembele. I updated you about Moussa Dembele the other week. Obviously, he's an out-and-out number 9. He's Moussa Dembele. He's only very, very young. I think he's 23 years of age. Obviously, you know, isn't British, but, you know, he's a good player. You know, his goal-scoring pedigree is also very, very good. He's Moussa Dembele's. And, you know, I think he would deliver the goods if he did come to Manchester United. We'd probably have to pay a substantial amount anyway to recommend him in. You know, we'd probably have to pay Leon around 71 million pounds, but he's also another player on our agenda. Leon did pay around £20 million for him from Celtic last summer. Because he did serve a good couple of years in Celtic, and he's now at Lyon. You know, he's been at Lyon one season. He's now into his second season there with Lyon. Don't forget when he was younger, he played for Fulham. Well, Moussa Dembele actually began his career with Fulham. So a lot of teams, I think, were also in for him then. And I already give you the news, didn't I, recently about James Maddison. So he's also another player on our agenda. So yeah, it's good that we are making plans for January. So that's very, very good indeed. But you know, like I mentioned, you know, a lot of money has been spent at Manchester United over the years. Like I mentioned, you know, 148 million under Solskjaer in the summer, around that anywhere. Just under 400 million under Mourinho, 200 odd million under Van Gaal, you know, 60 odd under David Moyes. So we spent around £800 million on players, you know, since the Alex Ferguson era. And that's just under £1 billion, and that's not taking into account, you know, what was spent under Alex Ferguson. But that is a hell of a lot of money. And I know we are known in recent years, you know, for overpaying for players. You know, we also seem to do that a lot. You know, but I said in this market at this day and age, you know, you've got to overpay for certain players. But yeah, you've got to overpay for certain players, like I mentioned. Yeah, so got to overpay, you know, for certain players. But like I mentioned, you know, Solskjaer is, you know, our fourth permanent manager since the Alex Ferguson era, and you know, so we haven't got the structure really, you know, to keep sacking managers. You know, even though we have sacked 3 managers already since the Ferguson era. Obviously, you know, David Moyes got sacked from Manchester United after 10 months. He had a really short tenure with the football club. You know, the reason he came in, you know, David Moyes, is because obviously, you know, Ferguson did recommend him in at the time after his retirement. And I think that was the only mistake actually, you know, Alex Ferguson made. You know, I think, you know, we finished 7th back under the David Moyes era, so that's the lowest we've finished since the Ferguson era. Obviously got Van Gaal, you know, he lasted just over a year at the football club. He got sacked despite the fact he won the FA Cup with Man United. Then we recommended Jose Mourinho win. Like I mentioned, my perception on that is that, you know, we recommended Jose Mourinho in too late. I think, you know, we should have got him, you know, probably earlier than we did. We should have got him actually after Alex Ferguson, in my opinion. Then it could have been a different scenario with Man United. But Mourinho got sacked. Obviously, even though he did win the Europa League and the League Cup in his first season at Man United. And, you know, I already explained the reasons why it didn't work out under Mourinho, as we actually thought it would have done at the first, because he obviously had bad disputes with the board. The board weren't backing the signings that he wanted to recommend in to the football club last summer. You know, and he had bad disputes with quite a lot of the top players in the board and everything, like I mentioned. You know, his philosophy wasn't right for the football club. So these are the reasons it didn't work out under Jose Mourinho. But, you know, like I mentioned, you know, reflecting on the size, the potential, the money in that's being spent in this football club and the history, you know, we should be much more of a commanding position, you know, than winning now. And obviously we know that, you know, I said at the start of this season that I didn't expect Man United to, you know, mount any kind of title challenge up this season or win the league. I just expected us to have a better season this season than what we saw last season, basically. You know, if we get top 4 this season, you know, I would be, you know, really, really happy about that. And that obviously, you know, gives us something to build on, you know, to emulate to a higher level. But I don't think, you know, like I mentioned, we are going to get the top 4 this season. To be quite honest with you, I think our expectations will be that top 4 in the next couple of seasons, you know. So I think we need at least 5 to 6, maybe even more players, if we are to be future title contenders. That's just my opinion on it all. Yeah. That's my opinion on it all, like I mentioned. And, we haven't only spent a lot of money, there's also, players on big contracts at Manchester United, take that into account. You've got Rashford on, 300 grand a week. You've got Martial on 200 grand a week. You've got Lingard on around 100 grand a week. You've got Pogba on 290 grand a week. You've got Maguire on 200 odd grand a week. You've got De Gea on 375 grand a week. So we've also got players on big contracts at the football club. I'm also very, very happy as well that we have sorted a lot of the contract renewals out. Because obviously that was a problem at one point. Getting players new contracts and that. But I'm recently happy that we give Mason Greenwood a new contract, because I think anywhere that Mason Greenwood will become a success at the football club. I'm also very, very happy that we give Brandon Williams a new contract at Manchester United and that. But Solskjaer, to be fair to him, I'll credit him for this. He has, got a lot of trustworthy in his young upcoming players. He actually has got a lot of trustworthy in his young upcoming players, which is very, very good. I've got some element of concerns about certain young upcoming players like I mentioned. I don't think all of them, will become a success at Man United. I thought a lot of them did become a fruition throughout pre-season and that. But I was reading the reports the other week, and it did say, we are considering loaning, or we will loan Chong, Gomez and Jimmy Garner out in January, because maybe they're not good enough for the football club. Maybe they're not getting the opportunities, that they would like. And maybe it'll just be beneficial for their, long-term future if, we do loan them out, and it'll gain them more experience and stuff. But like I mentioned, I think Greenwood and Tuanzebe, they definitely both will become successes at Manchester United, in my opinion. But the vast majority of the young players have actually been given their chances this season, which is obviously very, very good. But the major concern I've got is our midfield, and I hope we can, at least get one midfielder in January, you know what I mean? Because, our midfield's so poor, especially when Paul Pogba's not playing. I know McTominay, has, played really, really well this season. Fred's played well in the odd couple of games here and there. But I just don't know if that duo are the long-term solutions for Manchester United. And I don't know if McTominay and that can keep the consistency up. And I hope it can. But this season, McTominay has been playing between the lines well. His defensive contribution, and that's been very, very good. So I actually have been very, very impressed with McTominay. But either midfielder we've got would... he's actually better than Nemanja Matic. I think Nemanja Matic is actually probably the worst midfielder, where we've got. I think he's actually as bad as Fellaini, and, he was bad enough. I know we've got Andres Pereira as well. Pereira's played on the right quite a few times this season, and I think, Pereira, credit him, I think he's done well in a couple of games this season. I thought he was really, really good in the game against Liverpool at the weekend, so I will credit him for that. But a lot of young players in the squad. And obviously I still believe Solskjaer is under pressure at the club, because a lot of reports saying he was under a lot of pressure at Man United. Maybe the pressure has eased off a little bit now. That good point, we got against Liverpool, but I still think he'll be under some kind of pressure. Reports did say the other week that if we fail to beat Norwich, that could sack Solskjaer. If not sack him, put his job in serious jeopardy, meaning the pressure, will mount up on him even more. But yeah, like I mentioned, and it said that, if we had to sack Solskjaer, the club will have to pay around £7 million in compensation to get rid of him from the football club, which is 7 million's around half, or is it more than half or below half, whatever, than what we paid to get rid of Jose Mourinho, because we paid around 19 or 20 million pounds to get rid of Jose Mourinho, take that into account. So basically, I just wanted to update you on that. De Gea and Pogba and Luke Shaw have all missed training, and they've all missed the trip to, Belgrade. So obviously, none of them, will be involved. But hopefully, all them, we'll be back for the game on Sunday against Norwich. So anyway, guys, drop your comments, likes below on the channel. If you do, consider subscribing. As always, and take care. God bless, and I'll see you guys all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.